Hi everybody, welcome back. So a few things before we get started today. I have finally finished dyeing my hair and it's black on top and pink on bottom. My hair's not naturally black. Anyways, but the other thing, to that comment from yesterday's video about me getting a new mic, I can't. One, this is supposed to be a low budget YouTube channel, which it literally the only thing I spent money on for this channel were the 4 books or technically 5 books that I needed. And secondly, I have sensory issues, and the screeching and the just the everything about the microphone, just I wouldn't be able to know how to handle it. Like, just wearing glasses is like my sensory enough. And with my ADHD, even these, which hang from my glasses, is distracting. And I couldn't even imagine all the stuff with the microphone. So yes, I will not be getting a mic because of those reasons. So, yeah. Sorry if you can't hear me, but I tried to talk pretty loud. And, yeah. So I will not be getting a new mic. Okay. Chapter 3. The next star day, Tessa was late for class. But why? Oh, why did it have to be Wish World Relations with Professor Margaret Dumar? But why, oh why, did it have to be Wish World Relations with Professor Margaret Dumar? After baking the comic cakes with Cassie, she felt so calm and productive she'd actually finished her Being Human paper. She sent it right off, but hadn't heard back from the professor. Not a hollow note saying it was okay it was late. Not a message saying she was lowering the grade because Tessa had missed the due date. However, her teacher felt Tessa wasn't looking forward to walking into class after the lecture had already begun. If only she hadn't tried to take a quick peek at Jewel, the quick peek had turned into a very long gaze, and then her mom had holotexted a new recipe, and Tessa just had to holocall to say star salutations, and it sounded great. And the two had talked until her mom had asked why she wasn't in class. Now racing through the cosmic transporter, she was tempted to go back to her room and grab a leftover comic cake to give to Professor Margaret Dumar. Maybe that would somehow explain her tardiness, or at least give the teacher a reason to be more lenient. But Tessa doubted that would, in fact, help. Professor Margaret Dumar would know she was being bribed. Oops! Lost in thought, Tessa had almost gone right by her classroom. Hey, where's the Starfire? Scarlet stepped in front of her, blocking the classroom door. I'm late for class, Scarlet, so please excuse me. Tessa started to walk around the other starling, but then she remembered the case. She stopped, turned back, and smiled encouragingly. Scarlet almost smiled back. I'm actually late, too. Since I've stopped skipping, it's taken me longer to get places than I think it should, she shrugged. I didn't even know I was skipping, but I guess acting crazy can have its benefits. Anyway, it's okay with me if you and Cassie come with me next time. To the caves? Tessa said loudly, not quite hiding her surprise. That one says surprise for some reason, but okay. It was all happening faster than she thought it would. She had imagined Cassie would have trouble convincing Scarlet, a notorious loner, to help them go along. Shh! Scarlet said, annoyed. Then she stomped away without saying another word, her boots thudding loudly. Tessa took a deep breath and peered through the window of the classroom door. Professor Margaret Dumar had her back to Tessa and was speaking to the students. Now, thought Tessa. She quickly opened the door just a bit with her wish energy manipulation and slipped inside. Today we will delve into one of the pillars of positivity, creating a peaceful space. Professor Margaret Dumar paused, then with her back still to Tessa said, Tessa, please take a seat and join us. Tessa hurried into an empty desk, thinking, that wasn't bad at all. Margaret Professor Margaret Dumar didn't sound angry in the least. Maybe she didn't care that Tessa was arriving after the bell. A girl named Violetta, sitting next to Tessa, turned to her with a smirk. "Late again, Stardope?" she hissed. If only she hadn't been in such a rush, Tessa would have noticed Violetta and found another empty desk. She would never, in a million star years, purposefully sit next to the girl. The purple-haired starling was great friends with Vivica, even though Violetta was 2 grades ahead. She fawned over the younger starling as if she was the most star-amazing thing since sliced tinsel toast. Maybe Violetta liked the way their names sounded together, or maybe she was just afraid if she didn't flatter Vivica, she would turn on Violetta like she had done to so many others. Violetta tapped the clock on her star zap and shook her head sadly at Tessa. "Now you're slow to get to class, too. Poor Tessa. You slow developers lag behind in everything." Or maybe she was just plain mean. Okay. Tessa shifted her attention to the front of the room. Professor Margaret Dumar was gesturing at a small device. Instantly, a hollow picture of a lovely garden appeared. Flutter focuses, their sparkly wings glowing, fluttered around delicate blush bellflowers, their pink petals glimmering in the sun. Kaleidoscope trees ringed a clear blue pond, their ever-changing colors reflected in the still waters. With the wave of the teacher's arm, the picture expanded, wrapping around the classroom and winding amongst desks, so it seemed the girls were sitting right at its very center. Professor Margaret Dumar wrinkled her forehead in concentration, her magenta and blue striped bangs swaying gently with the motion. Tessa's seat slowly transformed, shrinking, changing shape, texture, and color, until she realized she was sitting on a moss-covered stone as soft as her bed. She looked around and saw all the chairs had been replaced. A sweet fragrance filled the air. Someone sighed with contentment. To feel positive, to be trusting and open to experience and accepting of outcomes, to be in the moment. Sorry, the thing was hyphenated and then went on, so it took a bit. Professor Margaret Dumar spoke in a low, soothing voice. Be mindful of your surroundings. Feel a sense of place, real or imagined, and let that place bring a peaceful moment. A moment that will bring good vibrations to everything and everyone in sight. Gather and share that positive energy flow. Tessa's fingers grazed her velvety smooth moss, and using all her senses took in the scene. She watched a gold and silver flutter focus intently, studying and enjoying its grace and beauty. She felt loose and relaxed. Is this for real, she wondered idly, or just a hollow illusion? The girl on her other side slowly tipped her head up to the ceiling, now a bright sky. The entire class seemed to be lulled into a sunshiny, dreamy state. Even Violetta had a sweet smile on her face. So maybe it didn't matter. What counted was the feeling, the positive emotion that took from a tranquil setting, the feeling that you should achieve the impossible. She felt the positive energy flow. Creating a peaceful space, Professor Margaret Dumar said softly, can bring with it power. To shrug off negativity. She turned to look steadily toward Tessa, an understanding smile on her lips. One day, when you're on a wish world mission, things may not be going your way. You may not be able to find your wisher. She paused for a moogle to stare directly at Tessa. Or your wisher may be late. Tessa realized she hadn't really gotten away with anything. In her own way, Professor Margaret Dumar was taking her to task for being late. Okay. But Tessa felt surprisingly okay about it. The calm feeling persisted. And in those cases, the professor continued, you'll need to increase your positivity. At the word positivity, Tessa heard a buzzing sound and looked for a nearby glitterbee among the flowers. But the garden scene was fading. The flutter focuses in flowers disappearing, and the buzzing seemed more insistent. Oh, Tessa realized with a start. That was her stars app, set on low. Class dismissed. See you all on Luna Day, the teacher said, smiling. And don't forget to check 3C for your term paper grades. I'm sure you'll all be pleased. There were many eyes. Illumination? Tessa thought. Does she have a moonshot at a grade like that? Violetta gave her one last sneer before she left the class, saying, if I were a star dope, I wouldn't be in a rush to find out my grades. But Violetta spoke in such a soft, pleasant way, the words barely stung. Positivity at work, Tessa thought. A little more time spent in pleasant surroundings, minus Vivica, might be all that Starling needs. Buzz. Oh, my star zap. Oh, shit, wrong. Oh, my star zap. Tessa remembered. She checked the screen and saw a group holotext from Scarlet, with Cassie included in on the message. My aspirational art class is canceled. Professor Finley Claxworth is off to Starland City for the opening of his new exhibit, Paint by Sunbursts. Half-free period next. Let's go exploring. Meet me at the fountain right now. Tessa had to smile. Scarlet, usually so abrupt, was quite chatty by holotext. Luckily, Tessa had an independent study period next. She was supposed to go to the Illumination Library and report to the supervising librarian, Lady Florida. But as a third year, she was allowed to skip study hall 3 times a term. She wasn't sure how many periods she missed already. Hadn't she used some... What the hell? Where did that come from? Oh my god. Excuse me. She wasn't sure how many periods she missed already. Hadn't she used some study time to bake Bright Day cakes just recently? But she didn't have time to check in at the Illumination Library, so she hurried directly to the fountain. In the Star Quad, as always, the water seemed to dance as it flowed, sparkling with all the colors of the rainbow. Scarlet was already there. Where's Cassie? Scarlet said immediately, dispersing with any sort of greeting. Moonberries! Tessa shook her head. I totally forgot. Cassie brought her star zap in for repairs. She didn't get the holotext. Tessa expected an angry retort from Scarlet, but maybe she'd come from a positivity class too, because the starling only shrugged. Well, no rush. I have band practice after this period, but Leona won't mind if I skip. Scarlet was the Star Darlings band's drummer. She was so talented, maybe Leona allowed her flexibility, but no matter what, Leona most certainly would mind if Scarlet missed practice. Then again, Scarlet probably found that appealing. Cassie has Wishers 101, Tessa told Scarlet. It was an introductory course taught by Professor Alara Ursa. The class was held in the largest lecture hall, filled with row upon row of first years just figuring out wishlings. Cassie had already met several in person, and surely no more than all the other students combined. It wouldn't be a big deal for her to miss it. If we hurry, we can catch her before class starts. The two starlings ran across the cosmic transporter, but weren't quite fast enough. Cassie's classroom door was just sliding shut as they approached. Through the door's window, they could see Cassie's pink hair falling over her desk as she readied her supplies. Come on, said Scarlet, pulling Tessa back outside. She stopped by the floor-to-ceiling window along one wall of the lecture hall. We'll just have to wave to Cassie until she comes out. Oh, I don't think so. The last teacher Tessa wanted to get in trouble with was Professor Alara Ursa. Well, no, the very last teacher was Professor Margaret Dumar, but she needed to be on her best behavior around Professor Alara Ursa, too. Tessa ducked behind a star marble pillar. Listen, Tessa, you have to stop hiding, Scarlet told her. You still haven't gone on a mission, so you may be chosen any starman now. How will you be successful on Wish World if you're too nervous to get a friend out of class right here on Starland? Tessa took a deep breath. Everyone knew Scarlet was fearless, and she, Tessa, was not by a moonshot. Still, Scarlet had a point. She had to learn how to handle setbacks, just like Professor Margaret Dumar was trying to teach them. For a Moogle, she pictured the peaceful classroom garden. Okay, she said, stepping closer to Scarlet. Scarlet grinned, then waved her arms furiously at Cassie. She shielded her eyes like she was on some sort of search, then flapped her arms like a bit bat. It was a good pantomime and would definitely give Cassie the idea of exploring the caves, if she was looking. Unfortunately, she wasn't. Tessa waved tentatively just as Cassie turned her head, and seemed to stare in her direction. So Tessa gestured wildly with both arms, meaning, "Come out to us." Cassie wrinkled her brow in a "huh?" expression. Now Tessa put her whole body into it, gesturing wildly at Cassie, then crouching low and holding her star zap like a flashlight, as if she was exploring a dark tunnel. Tessa began to enjoy herself, thinking it was like star charades, a game she and Gemma would play for star hours on cold, snowy nights at the farm. She didn't even pause when Scarlet tapped her shoulder. "Wait a Moogle, I'm almost finished," she whispered. "Finished doing what?" asked... Oh, shit. "Finished doing what?" asked someone in an amused tone. It was a voice Tessa knew all too well. She straightened slowly, a bright green blush rising to her cheeks. Nothing, Professor Laura Ursa," she said weakly. Scarlet was nowhere to be seen. "Would you mind doing nothing elsewhere, Tessa?" "Somewhere else, Tessa, son of a bitch. Would you mind doing nothing somewhere else, Tessa?" the professor said pleasantly. "It's a little distracting for the class." "Of course," said Tessa, edging away and ducking her head in embarrassment. "Star apologies, Professor Laura Ursa." When she found the courage to look at the teacher, it was too late. Professor Laura Ursa was already back in the classroom. "Whew, that was close," said Scarlet, emerging from behind the pillar. "Yes, for me," said Tessa, testily. But really, she'd done the same kind of thing to Gemma at home, thinking their parents would go easier on her little sister because she was younger. Of course, she and Scarlet were exactly the same star age, but what good did it do for both of them to get in trouble? Now what? "We go to the caves," said Cassie, coming out from behind the pillar too. "While you were talking to Professor Laura Ursa, Scarlet snuck me out of class." "Wrong way, Tessa!" "What?" Tessa was heading toward Lady Stella's office, where the Star Darlings always took a secret passage to the Stargates. "I said wrong way," Scarlet repeated, tugging on Tessa's arm. She led Tessa and Cassie out of the building, toward the dorms. "Where exactly are we going?" asked Cassie. "To the Big Dipper dorm." Cassie opened her mouth to ask another question, but Tessa shot her a look. Tessa was learning that sometimes with Scarlet, less was more. Not asking questions... Oh my god. Not asking questions might get you all the info you needed. "There's another entrance here," leading them inside the dorm, then through the halls to a door marked Starling Academy staff only. "This is it?" Tessa asked. Her stomach rumbled the way it did when she felt hungry or anxious. She thought longly of her room, only a few doors away, where a dish of garbled green chips sat on her desk. Without saying a word, Scarlet opened the door. Inside, Tessa saw a tiny room filled with baskets of glow pong balls, sparkle shower supplies, and disappearing garbage cans. The three girls stepped into the small space, and Scarlet shut the door behind them. They were in total darkness. Tessa sucked in her breath and only realized it when Scarlet switched her star zap to flashlight mode. Scarlet flicked her wrist, and a trap door opened at their feet. The supply closet filled with an eerie light. Tessa glimpsed winding metal stairs, but nothing else. "Let's go," Scarlet whispered. "Okay," Tessa whispered back. That was what she wanted after all. She wanted to find something there that would clear Lady Stella, or at least provide a clue. Still, farm girl Tessa liked bright open spaces, not closed-in, dimly lit tunnels. Of course, she'd been in the caves many times and loved the light-filled wish house, but she never, ever enjoyed the trip there. And that was when Lady Stella had been leading the way. Now, she and Cassie only had Scarlet. There's literally a gulp here, and I'm not kidding. Oh my god, hot damn. Okay. As they made their way down the steps and into a passage, Tessa gazed at water dripping from the ceiling. Rocks hung like icicles, and stones rose from the ground in pointed shapes. Glowing gems set deeply into walls cast strange shadows. No, she really didn't want to be there, but Scarlet seemed to know her way, walking quickly through corridor after corridor, stopping once to point the way to their secret wish cavern. I don't know what we're looking for, Cassie spoke for the first time in a quiet, calm voice. Me neither, Scarlet said almost happily. But if Lady Stella is doing something in secret, it would probably be Why? It would probably be down here, in a spot the rest of us have never seen. Maybe there's a room full of poisonous flowers, or a tech lab where she can mess with everyone's star zaps. Besides, Scarlet went on, isn't it a nice change of pace from being above ground, surrounded by so many starlings and their silly chatter? I feel like I can breathe here. Tessa pulled out her star zap. I forgot to tell Gemma where I was going, she said. Scarlet put her hand over the communicator. Those don't work down here, she said. Tessa didn't feel the way Scarlet did about being underground and was about to suggest they leave when suddenly a bit bat swooped star inches from her face. Tessa jumped back, startled. Star greetings, little one, Scarlet said in a cooing voice Tessa had never heard her use before. The bit bat landed on Scarlet's outstretched finger, then swung upside down, folding its wings. Oh, Tessa gasped. She's so cute. Tessa had never really seen a bit bat so close before. She was silvery white and as small as a gopher. Her big, luminous green eyes seemed a little sad. Tentatively, Tessa held out her hand, and the bit bat swung over to her finger. Ugh! Cassie pressed herself against the wall. She likes you, Tessa, said Scarlet approvingly. Other bit-bats flew past, and Tessa smiled. They were like tiny acrobats, somersaulting through the air and swaying upside down. I like them too, she said. Tessa felt her fears vanish into the air. She understood now why Scarlet could spend star hours there. They wandered the caves until it was time to go to their next class. The caves suddenly seemed enticing and mysterious to Tessa, and she felt like she understood Scarlet better after that. At least a little bit anyways, but still, they didn't find a thing. Chapter 4! Okay, I will see you guys tomorrow after I'm done with my schoolwork.